I was recently asked about why it is that it seems some people attract narcissists into their lives over and over again. I think this is a little bit of a misperception to think of it as us attracting narcissists into our life. And I think it's really important to understand why it is that some of us repeat this pattern over and over again. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. I think it's first important to explore the idea of us attracting narcissists into our lives. This isn't really how it works, although it can certainly create that type of illusion. Narcissistic relationships are very similar to scams. And as we all know, anybody running a scam is really not particular about who they target. They target whoever they think will fall for the scam. Narcissists will seek out anyone that will buy into their narrative, that will support them in whatever way they want, and that will give to them without expecting much in return. For those of us that repeatedly end up in relationships with narcissists, it isn't so much that there's anything special about us that has attracted them to us. It's that there's something about us that creates a sort of synergy in which a relationship with a narcissistic individual seems to work for us, at least for a little while. In this video, I want to talk about what those things are that can make a narcissistic relationship seem like a good idea. I think it's important to recognize for us that repeat this pattern over and over again, the attraction is mutual. The narcissist is probably just as attracted to us as we are to him or her. I don't think it's particularly helpful to look at ourselves as a target because everyone is a target for narcissistic people. I believe that it's a myth to think that there's something special about us that a narcissist is just honing in on and targeting us for. And that's not to be confused with the idea that there are a lot of people in this world that will immediately reject the advances or the story or the manipulations of a narcissistic person. And narcissistic people that are facing any kind of resistance in that way probably aren't going to try very hard. They're going to move on to the next person, and they're going to continually look for somebody that cooperates with them, that buys into their narrative, that's willing to give them the things they want. And I also think that although this should go without saying, it's really important to understand that if you are somebody that ends up in relationships with narcissists repeatedly, it does not mean that you're stupid. And I think this is a really unfortunate belief that we may come to embrace, thinking that there's something wrong with us, that it's an intelligence problem, that we're not as smart as other people. Intelligence has nothing to do with this. This is all about our internalized beliefs and the way that we view ourselves and what we deserve and the way that we understand other people. It really isn't our fault if a relationship with a narcissistic person feels right or feels better than it really is. In order to overcome this tendency that a lot of us may have, it takes a lot of growth and self-exploration. It takes a lot of work, and intelligence has nothing to do with it. Once we can understand why it is we keep repeating this behavior, then we can do something about it. So what is there to understand? To quickly summarize, the most common causes of repeatedly entering narcissistic relationships is repetition compulsion, low self-esteem, and codependency. But if you suffer from these things, you probably aren't aware of them. These all operate on a subconscious level. One thing that you can consciously look out for is a tendency to look for validation in others, or a tendency to look towards others for your own self-worth. If you notice a pattern in your life in which people that you respect and look up to have total control over your self-esteem moment to moment, this is something that may cause you to be attracted to narcissistic individuals. When you allow other people, and it doesn't matter who these other people are, they can be people that you have enormous respect for, but nobody really should have the right to make you feel like you're good enough or not good enough based on whatever their opinion in the moment is. You should be able to know within yourself that you're worthy of respect and that you're a good enough person that deserves love and acceptance and connection. You shouldn't be looking towards others to reassure you of this. This is actually something that narcissistic people suffer from constantly. And this is a big reason that they manipulate people so much, because they're in such constant, desperate need for external validation. The people that they end up in relationships with actually have a very similar problem. I think it's helpful to really ask yourself, do you end up in situations where maybe after a phone call, or maybe after a business meeting, or maybe just after a simple phrase or an action from somebody that you look up to, are you susceptible to having moments of deep shame, of feeling very down on yourself because of what somebody else has said or done? Someone with healthy self-esteem, someone that's able to validate themselves, won't be plunging into these depths of shame based on what somebody else has said to them or what they perceive somebody else thinks. If we have the tendency to do this, it leaves us very vulnerable to manipulation by narcissistic people. Narcissists thrive on people that are hanging on their every word or dependent on their approval. Another trait you may have that makes you susceptible to narcissistic relationships is a willingness to completely change yourself in order to please other people. Do you look to other people for approval, and do you change things like maybe your religious beliefs or your political opinions or just day-to-day life philosophies? Are you willing to change who you are in order to feel loved and accepted? This is indicative of somebody that doesn't feel like they're good enough to be loved or accepted as they are. If you feel like love and acceptance is conditional upon being good enough for the person that you're trying to be accepted by, then this goes back to low self-esteem and low self-regard, and not really believing that you, just the way you are worthy of love and acceptance. Narcissists thrive on this because all they have to do is threaten you and tell you that whatever you think or said or did isn't good enough, and they can coerce you into adopting their ideas and agreeing with whatever it is that they're saying. Another trait you may have that attracts you to narcissistic relationships is a tendency to idealize people. If you tend to look at people, especially potential romantic partners, as infallible, as perfect, this can create a situation in which you aren't willing to see the faults in the person that you have a relationship with, in which you become blind to red flags and worse in the relationship, and which it takes you a very long time to acknowledge serious problems as they come up in the relationship. It's healthy to allow other people to have faults and imperfections without discounting what's good about them. When we don't have this skill developed, it can lead to a situation in which we don't want to recognize any faults in the people that we have our hearts set on. Another trait that may make us susceptible to narcissistic relationships is a habit in which we project our feelings onto other people, in which we aren't willing to ask how somebody else feels about us, or to listen to their answers, or in which we imagine that other people feel ways about us that they really don't, in which we aren't willing to look at reality and we aren't willing to let painful truths into our lives. If we feel like we're madly in love with someone, we imagine that they must be madly in love with us. And it's very scary and painful to look behind the curtain and to actually face the reality of what the other person feels for us. Some of us can be in relationships with narcissists for years, assuming that they love us because maybe they've moved in with us, maybe they've married us, maybe they've said that they love us, but we can be unwilling to look at their behavior and to look at the reality of how they show us that they feel. We can project our affection towards them onto them and assume that they must feel the same way about us. This habit can help narcissistic individuals bury the resentments and the contempt that they actually have for us. And this can help them hide behind your illusions and help them avoid the task of being honest about how they feel about you. Pathological narcissists do not love the people they're with. They do not really care about them, and they don't feel anything near what the people that love them feel for them. Another common trait in people that end up in relationships with narcissists is the feeling that you need to chase love, that it's something that you need to catch, almost as if it's some sort of sport, and that you're the one that needs to put in all the effort in order to earn somebody's love. This can play into a lot of what I've been talking about so far, such as your willingness to change yourself, such as your need to find your own self-worth in others. When you feel like you have to chase love, part of that is feeling like you need to make yourself lovable. And part of that is not understanding or being able to see that you're already lovable just the way you are. When you end up in relationships with narcissistic people, it's likely that you may feel as if you are lucky, as if you are the lucky one, and as if they are doing you some sort of favor by being in this relationship with you. If that thought resonates with you, I think it's really important to reevaluate the way that you approach relationships and the way that you view your own value and view the value of what you bring into the relationship. You probably bring a lot more to the relationship than you realize, and you're probably receiving a lot less than you deserve. People that repeatedly end up in relationships with narcissists, it's really common just to generally feel unworthy of love, or to feel like you need to constantly be jumping through hoops to earn love, and to have an inability to see and understand what it means to already be worthy of love. I think a quick way to understand this a little better is to think about how much you may have loved a very toxic, abusive, narcissistic individual. I don't know how much more flawed somebody can be than to be hurting and betraying and lying and manipulating and exploiting and abusing somebody that loves them. But I think experiencing loving somebody that's that flawed can help you see that love is not something that's earned. Love is something that's given because of who the person is. And it's only destroyed by that kind of behavior. And it takes a lot of very bad, hurtful behavior to destroy love. And your love for somebody that is that flawed didn't come from how perfect they are. It certainly didn't come from them jumping through hoops trying to earn your love. Love is given because of who you are. And if after all this, there's only one idea that you take away from this video to help you stop repeating relationships with narcissistic people, it is that you are already lovable just the way you are. People can love you as flawed as you are, just the way you are. You are acceptable. When we change ourselves for the sake of a relationship, we aren't changing ourselves so that we can be loved. We're changing ourselves so that we can make the relationship more harmonious, so that we can make the relationship work. And I think this can be a really common misperception when we're maybe going to therapy or maybe trying to talk out differences and trying to compromise with people. We may feel like this is what I need to do in order to be loved and accepted. And that's never the case. When we change our habits and we make compromises for the people that we love, it isn't so that we can be worthy of love. It's so that we can make the relationship itself a happier one for both people that are in it. And I just think that's a really important concept to internalize and really understand. You are worthy of love and respect just the way you are. There's no one in your life right now that should have the right or that has earned the right to mistreat you and disrespect you and insult you and criticize you and abuse you. No one has the right to treat you that way, no matter how imperfect you are. And one more idea I want to go over is what I quickly mentioned earlier, is repetition compulsion. If earlier in our lives we were in a relationship, maybe with a parent or maybe just with somebody that we knew as a child, that made us feel like we had to earn love, that made us feel like we had to try really hard to be good enough, to be worthy of respect and acceptance, that's going to carry over into the rest of our adult years, where we're looking for people that are emotionally unavailable, where we're looking for people that pose this same challenge to us, because it's really been ingrained in us to believe that we have to earn love, that nobody's going to just love us the way we are. And so we'll unconsciously seek out people that will encourage us to jump through hoops in order to earn their love, because we feel like that's really the only kind of love we can ever really have. So to sum everything up, in order to prevent repeatedly entering relationships with narcissistic individuals. It's so important to recognize your own worth. It's so important to know that you deserve love and respect just the way you are, that there's nothing about you that you need to change in order to be loved. And if you need to change yourself in order for somebody else to love you, that person really isn't ever going to love you anyway, because they don't love the person that you really are. There's nothing wrong with recognizing that somebody is just not a good match for you. It's not a personal rejection of your self-worth. You don't need to seek your self-worth in anyone else but yourself. No one on earth, no matter how amazing or how worthy or how awesome they might be, is going to be a good match for every single other person. Just because somebody doesn't love you the way that you would like them to, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you or anything wrong with them. Narcissists will take advantage of your internalized belief that a relationship in which you're not loved is a relationship in which you need to chase love. In reality, a relationship in which you're not loved is simply a relationship that you need to distance yourself from. And you just need to seek out the people that see the value in you just as you are, because there is a lot of value to be found in who you already are. You deserve love and respect right now, just the way you are. And you need to seek out the people that can already see that in you. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.